Shortly before sunset, walking among the back streets of the town of Moffat in the Scottish southern uplands, I was accosted by a tourist. "What's the name of that hill?" she demanded to know, pointing and gazing longingly at an undistinguished, spruce-planted hump on the distant skyline. "It's so beautiful." It was so not beautiful, it took me a while to identify what I was supposed to be looking at. I couldn't name the hill. I suggested she obtain a local OS map if she really wanted to know, but she threw me a blank, uncomprehending look, and I didn't pursue the matter any further. I definitely did not share the lady's romantic appraisal of the scene, but the encounter jolted me into the realization that many people can't discriminate natural and farmed countryside, and some can't tell one type of tree from another. Not, I suspect, even broadleaf versus conifer, and certainly not conifer versus other conifers. I'd have got nowhere trying to explain the stark difference between the crop of introduced Sitka spruce we were looking at and a natural Scots Pine scene. I couldn't show her. That encounter highlights a bit of a problem, a common public misconception that the Scottish landscape is typified by dense groves of slender, pointed, air quotes, Christmas trees. Dense plantations of Sitka spruce, a close relation of Norway spruce, the true Christmas tree, fool people into presuming that crop conifers are the equivalent of the forests of, say, Washington State, Scandinavia or Siberia. Scotland has approximately 4,500 square kilometres of crop Sitkas, so it shouldn't surprise us that those who don't know trees well assume they are part of the natural landscape. Scotland has just 3 native coniferous trees, Scots Pine, Juniper and Yew, so any spruce, cypress, larch or fir are introductions. Narrow conical Christmas tree-like conifers were never seen in the British landscape until Sitka spruce was brought over from North America in 1831, and then not noticeable until they were planted widely as a crop after each of the world wars. The conspicuous native coniferous trees had always been, and still are, Scots pines, which are distinctly rounded in form. Note that they are called pines, not fir trees. Once a few botanical facts have been learnt, the differences between pine forest and Sitka plantation should be pretty well unambiguous. Scots pines have broad, rounded crowns, while Sitka spruces are narrow and pointed. Wild trees are well spaced and vary in age and size. Crop trees are crowded and all the same. This image provides a clear landscape scale comparison. Natural Scots pine woodland in the foreground and a Sitka spruce plantation on the hillside beyond. The misconception that the Highland landscape is characterised by pointed trees is widespread. Here it's embedded in what presumably is supposed to be an archetypal Highland railway scene. I think there can be little doubt that the viaduct is the Glenfinnan of the species, famous for conveying the Hogwarts Express. This image is wrong for the real Glenfinnan Valley and wrong as a representation of Scotland. This is art, not photography, so maybe I'm being overcritical, but not in the next instance. Arrivals at Glasgow Airport serves to emphasise the point. Incoming passengers are funnelled through rustic arches, promising an experience of the Trossachs National Park, that's by Loch Lomond, and then file along corridors decorated with murals, showing what most will presume is a true Scottish forest scene. After all, the label tells them it's iconic. What they are actually seeing is a Sitka spruce plantation in which the trees are atypically set well apart so that a diverse ground flora has had the opportunity to develop. It's hugely different from dark, dank, unvegetated reality. I suspect the grouse was photoshopped in. Doesn't help. Wherever visitors drive around Scotland, roadsides are lined with mile upon mile of Christmas trees, usually Sitka spruce or lodgepole pine. They won't know that they're escapees, invading weed trees seeded from plantations that infest roadsides and scenic valleys, and march irrepressibly across hillsides and moorland. Top left, the rogue trees form a dense wall, obscuring the classic views the tourists came hoping to see. The authorities fail to recognise Sitka spruce and lodgepole pine as the invasive non-native species they have become, these days just as severe an environmental problem as Rhododendron ponticum, Himalayan balsam or Japanese knotweed. Both sorts of tree would be a lot easier to eradicate, just chop them down. But a lack of basic botanical knowledge means that the roads crews are instructed to prune them and therefore leave them to seed, spread and make the problem worse. When visitors see coniferous forest everywhere, why should they not assume this is the real Scotland? Then what do they make of scenes like this? Environmental devastation caused by clear fell harvesting using brutal big machines. If only clear felling of conifer plantations could restore Scotland's landscape, but so long as modern harvesting inflicts appalling damage on biodiversity and soils and leaves unharvested and escaped trees, of which there are now probably millions, that will be nothing more than a romantic aspiration. We really must care for the few remnants of Scotland's old pine forests and make sure people understand the differences between natural and farmed forests. This sort of land abuse will contribute nothing to protecting biodiversity and saving us from climate change.